Think puzzles and riddles are clever obstacles in your role-playing game? Think again. The problem? They stifle creativity with rigid, single-solution answers when RPGs should thrive on open-ended problems and player freedom. And instead of pulling us deeper into the game world, they break immersion and stretch our suspension of disbelief. So yeah, puzzles and riddles suck. And it's not for the reason you might think. So let me show you why, and more importantly, how to fix it. The argument you've probably heard 100 times by now is that riddles challenge your players and not the characters. And yeah, that's true. But I think that's not really a problem. After all, the same could be said for social encounters. Your characters can't say what you can't say. Sure, you can just roll a persuasion or intimidate or whatever check. If that's how you play, that's totally fine. I prefer playing that out, but both approaches are totally valid. If you apply it to riddles on the other hand, they're not really different from a lock then, are they? The thief just rolls on lockpicking and that's it. You roll on intelligence and solve the riddle. Bit anticlimactic if you ask me. And that's also not how people usually use puzzles. Most of the time the GM presents one of those smart riddles from Lord of the Rings, or they take a puzzle where you have to press runes in a specific order or solve a Rubik's Cube or connect lines or whatever. And then there's also the argument that you hear a lot, that there are people who love puzzles and those that hate them. And while those people that love them figure out the solution, the rest of your group is getting bored and will start staring at their phone. That's also not really the reason why puzzles suck, and that's because it's not how it's supposed to be. The wizard's not supposed to pull out their phone while the barbarian massacres goblins or while the bard petitions to the king or something like that. It's a cooperative game after all, so if an aspect that you don't like comes up, you engage with it anyway and expect that your fellow players show you the same courtesy when something that interests you comes up. We call people who don't respect that social contract douchebags. So, those weren't the reasons why puzzles and riddles suck. So why do they? In my opinion, there's two big reasons. They're immersion breaking and they're anti-player agency. Let's start with why they're immersion breaking. Imagine yourself in this situation. You're a mighty wizard or demon or warlord or what have you, and you gotta protect your magical artifacts, your gold and your secrets. So obviously you put them in a dungeon, because where else? And how do you protect those precious items? Do you A, put a big lock on it, or B, design a complicated riddle or puzzle that a smart person can solve? Yeah. Why would you protect it with a puzzle? That makes absolutely no sense at all. You're basically saying, well, I don't really want to be robbed, but if the robber is particularly smart, that's actually kinda fine with me. Or, I don't know, maybe you're always losing keys and you can't really remember your password, so you've gotta make this riddle so you can solve when you come back home. But if that's you, then you are probably the kind of person who writes the computer's password on a post-it note and hides it under the keyboard. And then you're flabbergasted when someone manages to log into your computer. Just buy a safe. Free life tips here. So, those puzzles take a lot of player buy-in. But let's be honest, if you have fun solving puzzles, you can probably overlook that. No biggie. So let's get to the second problem, the player agency. Riddles and puzzles usually have one and only one single solution. I think that's problematic. TTRPGs are the special kind of adventure where you use your creativity and your options are only limited by your own imagination. No one can know what a character will do before we see it in actual play. And having something that has only one very specific solution, at least to me, feels like it destroys this aspect of the game. It makes it less creative than it could be and less creative than it should be. So, I've spent all this time talking about why puzzles and riddles suck, and you probably assume the solution is just not to use them by now. And why would you? Well, short answer, because they're a lot of fun. At least to the kind of people who like them. So, first, you gotta figure out who in your group even likes puzzles to begin with. And you can ask that right in session 0, about which I already made a video by the way. If you have at least 2 people who enjoy them, you should include them in your game. Maybe not in every single session though, remember you also have other players, but if everyone loves them? Anyway, if you have players who enjoy them, I'm sure they are willing to suspend their disbelief a little and squint their eyes just enough not to bother too much if it's 100% logical for a puzzle to be there or not. But locations where they make more sense are better, of course. An old training ground for wizards, for example, might be a cool place to put those press the glyphs and connect the dots puzzles, because they have to train their wands or whatever. A sphinx is a monster where riddles make sense all of a sudden, and the door is the perfect place to use speak, friend, and enter. Seriously, so just make it a talking door and all of a sudden it's a social encounter, which is kinda cool. By the way, I think puzzles are kinda the opposite of traps. Traps make sense to be there, but often players don't like them. And puzzles usually make no sense, but they are a lot of fun. Maybe I should make a video about traps in the future. So yeah, despite all this, you want to use your cool puzzles. How can you properly integrate them into your game without them being stupid? First, you gotta put them in the right place. And there's one very wrong place where you should never put them: in a bottleneck. That means a place where your players have to go through either to enter, progress or exit the adventure. Because players can get stuck on a puzzle or riddle, and it's extremely frustrating if they can't progress the cool adventure you have prepared for them. So, put them in front of optional content, like a treasure room, for example. And yeah, puzzles have the tendency to become endless puzzles, so I always prepare a fail state or consequence. You can pick this however you like, but telegraph them properly. Maybe it breaks after a certain amount of tries, or it sounds an alarm, or it's costly. It might even kill someone. That'll stop players from staying there forever, and players usually get stubborn and want to really solve them. Then there's the question of clues. Should you prepare them? Some GMs will say no, the players gotta figure it out by themselves or not at all. Some say clues are good because they make it less frustrating. Both are valid arguments, but let's for the moment assume you want to give your players clues. Prepare them in advance and give them out when players want them. There are people who'd rather fail than accept a clue, and that's okay, because you didn't put the puzzle in a bottleneck. But if they want clues, you should give them freely, without hiding them behind a role. I usually swerve from player questions to clues. Let's say we have one of those puzzles where you gotta press the glyphs in the correct order. I might say, as a wizard, you can feel the magic pulsating in those glyphs. You figure they have to be pressed in a specific order. And then I let them edit. Maybe the wizards ask if they recognize the symbols, and then I'll give a hint like, oh, those symbols seem to be gibberish. Perhaps the colors stand for specific schools of magic though. Those were the obvious parts to fix. There's still one pressing thing that we haven't addressed yet, and that's the single solution problem. And that's rather easy to solve actually. If your players have an alternative solution at hand, just let them do that. Or prepare stuff that naturally has several solutions. The Sphinx, for example, asks this weird riddle where the answer is a man. Yeah, you can think about the answer and solve the riddle. Or you can just punch the Sphinx in the face. It's not a creative solution, but it's an alternative one. Give your players obstacles with no obvious but many possible solutions. Make those problems solvable with common sense instead of system mastery, because that's what puzzles and riddles are really about. And also make them not require any special tools or abilities. Everything they need to solve it should be available in the same location. But if they have a spell that trivializes it, so be it. No reason to protect your puzzle. With this, you have everything at hand to prepare some cool puzzles for your players if they want to stretch their thinking muscles a little. But now I'd love to hear your stories. What cool puzzles have you created or had to solve? Did you have any problems with it? Write it down in the comments. Can't wait to read your stories. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe and recommend it to a friend. Oh, and also check out this video next. It's about old school rules, and some of those points might sound familiar to you. Anyway, enjoy your game night and have a great week.